Today, I'm joined by an artist friend of mine, Ray Vance. Welcome to the podcast.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we're slowly building the studio up. This is the closest the set has been to the set so far.
It's looking good.
Yeah, these are the final chairs, dude.
They're nice.
I think they'll get the job done. Maybe I get a pillow or something too, but how's everything going with you?
Good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, dude. So let's get right into it, dude. One thing that we were talking about right before the pod starts is like you'd be surprised at, who responds back to you when you reach out.
Yeah. So that's like an interesting thing. I feel like, I don't know, with like social media and how people have their followings, you'd be surprised with how responsive people really can be. If you reach out genuinely, if you've been a follower for a bit, and like I've even found over the years, I think you were talking about on other pods that like sometimes you see your numbers and those people don't feel real because they don't reach out to you. And what I found is like, it's not like a lot of my friends reach out to their favorite artists. So if you're another artist and you reach out to an artist, like there's a chance they're going to see it. And if you have a good enough pitch or if you kind of like introduce yourself in the right way, like you'll be surprised with who gets back to you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast. You can support by subscribing on YouTube or downloading on your preferred podcast platform. And definitely go do that because it helps us grow and I can have more incredible guests on the podcast. The Mike Squires and Friends podcast is proudly sponsored by Distrokid. Looking to broaden your musical horizons as an artist? Discover Distrokid. With its smooth and rewarding music distribution platform, Distrokid offers unlimited uploads while ensuring artists retain 100% of their royalties and earnings. Join the community of over 1 million artists who trust Distrokid to distribute their music across major platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, and so many others. Having personally used Distrokid since 2018, I can attest to their superiority amongst distribution services. Collaborating with fellow artists has become effortless, especially with the ability to easily send splits of songs, streamlining the creative process. With the Distrokid app, accessing these benefits is now more convenient than ever. Safely sign up or log in with two-factor authentication, upload releases on the fly, monitor earnings, and withdraw funds from your Distrokid bank. Stay updated on royalties through push notifications, effortlessly share hyperfollow links, manage account details seamlessly, and track streaming stats from Spotify and Apple. Additionally, explore Mixia for professional-grade mastering, DistroVid for music video distribution, and Instant Share for secure file sharing with collaborators, producers, and more. The Distrokid app is available on both iOS and Android. Download it today from the App Store or Google Play Store to revolutionize your music career. Visit distrokid.com/VIP/Mike Squires to get 30% off your first year membership. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mike Squires and Friends. Well, let's talk about it, dude, because you got 2 features on your songs that I'm just curious, like, how did Ray make this happen? So we'll go first. Kellen Quinn, dude.
Yo, so Kellen was great. I honestly gotta give a shout out to Flight Volume. Dylan Reese, Flight Volume, and we all kind of worked together in like some sense. And Flight got a feature, and it was one of those scenarios where I'm pretty sure he hit him up, and it was like an easy ask. And through that scenario, I actually had a song that I was producing, and I loved it, and there was something missing about it. And what was missing was that I shouldn't have been singing it, And literally hitting him with a handful of DMs, he was on a tour and couldn't get to me, and I didn't think it was going to work out. And then I kept the love up, like hitting him up, reaching out, not like asking for a feature, not begging for anything, just showing genuine love because I'm a fan of Kellin Quinn. Dude, one day they got back from tour and he was like, hey, are you still working on that song? And I was. Like, I had it. Like, I didn't mean to save it for that long, but it was just one of those scenarios where, like, because if I had never made that initial ask, like, what's the chances that I catch him when he's free that other time?
Yeah, and what's interesting to me too is that, just being consistent there and like, not always asking for something, like maybe ask what you want, but
yes.
like, then just being there and just being supportive, like will actually benefit the relationship longer because it like he could have been like, oh, this Ray dude that's fucking always asking me for shit. But he's,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something I should clarify. It's not like I've reached out to all these artists immediately asking for something. Like a lot of the people that I've met, it's all been, a lot of people that I've worked with, it's normally some form of networking where maybe I've met somebody that knows them, or I've been to their shows before and I've just shown genuine love, or I've bought merch and met them at a merch table and just had a conversation. And then months later, maybe even a year later, when the situation is right, maybe softball, hey, are you open for something? Like I have a song. They're already familiar with you. It's not like my first ask is, yo, let's work. That's like the worst.
So how did you end up linking with pop punk's Jimmy Fallon, dude?
Oh my God.
AKA Mod Son, dude.
So that one is it's the exact same story. It's the exact same scenario. It was during COVID, and it was friends of friends were getting features, and I knew that he was going to be available. And so I kind of knew that I had been a fan for years. I'd always reached out to him in the DMs, and this one is actually interesting to where I actually just hit his manager, and it was in an opportune time where I knew he was open for features, and they knew I'm a huge Machine Gun Kelly fan, and that is written all over my face and in my brand, and you can tell that. And I'm also a huge Mod Son fan. They're best friends. They're close guys. When I reached out with like a pitch for what my song was, they ate it up. And that was an opportunistic type of time. But that was a huge shock to me. I thought that was like a long shot. That one really was a surprise.
So like, what was the feeling when you got it, or like where it was like, yo, he hits you and he's like, I'm going to do this?
Dude, this is like peak COVID. I'm not seeing anybody, right? Like this is like where everybody's locked in their houses. I write this song, and it is kind of like in a weird transition period where I was making a lot of the pop punk music, and this is still kind of leaning more in the hip hop phase. And dude, he turned it around so fast it didn't feel real. Like it really didn't. It was one of those things where like the verse had gotten to me before I had fully processed that I was getting the verse. And oh my God, dude, it felt insane. And the craziest thing is in that time frame, just from me watching social media, like I know he hung out with Machine Gun Kelly. So I always say to my friends, like, there's a chance I came up in conversation of just, hey, I did this feature for this kid.
Yeah, that's fire, dude.
Literally.
Well, talking about Machine Gun Kelly, because he's an artist that, has transitioned from hip hop to pop punk, you know what I mean? And you've made a similar transition in your career. Why? I guess, what was the moment where you're like, I want to kind of transition my sound and really dial in on this pop punk style?
So that's like my timelines align with him so coincidentally, it's hilarious. But I started my like music life I'm playing guitar at like 8 years old. My parents got me like a little acoustic guitar. Then I got an electric guitar literally maybe less than a year later. And I always played pop punk music, and like my dad's a huge classic rock fan, so it was always rock. So like rap and hip hop was almost more of a phase than anything, and more of like kind of an entrance into writing music, because I could play other people's songs, but I didn't write songs on guitar. That was something I never did. It didn't even really like dawn on me. It was just, I like this Blink song, I'm going to play this Blink song. That was like my childhood, and playing like Van Halen and all that stuff.
Yeah. So you get in the game. When do you even get in the game as an artist too, dude? Let's bring it back. Okay. I kind of jumped right into the features that you did, but like I want to get the story of Ray Vans. Yeah.
We were talking before, so it was easy. But yeah, basically, so like I started playing guitar when I was like 8. And I started guitar lessons around that time, and I only play guitar. Oh, actually, and I hated this, but my mom had me do boys choir when I was like 7. So I had to get to school early on certain days of the week. So I'd have to get up early, and I'd have to sing, and I hated it. And like, I was a really shy kid. So like a lot of times when you have to sing, they would single you out to sing something. I'd just start crying. So like I was one of those people where like singing was something I had to do, and I didn't initially like I liked singing in a group, but it wasn't something that I thought of. So guitar was like my real love, and I didn't actually start making music, like recording it, until high school. One of my buddies wanted to do it for a school project, and I thought it was so corny. And then when we were like recording in his room, like in the booth, like going in this, like having the closet booth, like that's when I was like, oh, we can make music. I mean, it might not be good.
So what does it look like when you start releasing music?
So it took a while, because that was just like I did a school project. I started rapping, and that kind of like lowered the barrier of entry because like, you know how this can be. Me putting out music was a very like long effort. Like I played guitar for 10 years before I like even put out music. And when I started putting out music, it had nothing guitar in it. It was just like find a beat on YouTube or find a song you already like, rip it. There's already a song structure. Now just like fill in the blanks with words. And for a while it was just how many rhymes can I do in a row? How witty can I be? But after so long of doing that, you realize like there's a structure to things. Like you can approach songs with like, I don't know, we were talking about it earlier. Like there's an efficiency to like doing these types of things. And as that went on, I started realizing that I was doing more producing over time because I was getting beats with stems. Now I'm starting to move the stems around. Now I'm starting to like swap out things I don't like, do all these things. And as that evolved, when COVID hit, I really dove in on saying like, I'm going to start playing guitar and producing. And then I was like, wait, I can use all those guitar skills from when I was younger and try and, you know, do what I was initially drawn to, which was like pop punk and classic rock, guitar driven music. And that's kind of what I've been saying to people for years is that even during that Mod Sun time and that album before, even like honestly, the 2 projects before I started putting out pure pop punk music, a lot of those beats are like a guitar loop with some trap drums on it. I wasn't making those guitars, but that was something where I was like, like I wish I could do this.
Yeah. Well, you know, one thing that I like, and I guess Mod Sun kind of has this in his brand, the way at least I see him. And, you know, I know in one of your songs, you say you took an 1/8 of shrooms. Was that talking about a particular instance?
It was talking about a particular experience in my life. And Mod, yeah, he has some crazy stories like that. He even has a few books that he has written, like little short books that are about those types of experiences.
I want to hear about Ray's experiences though. What's going on over there, dude?
So, yeah, I've had a handful. It really kind of depends. I honestly haven't done it in a long time, but a lot of my songs have had some type of like reference to those moments. I've had some experiences where it's like, if you're tripping with somebody, you'll grow very close to them. You'll have a lifelong bond from that time on. And that was something I tried to put into some of these songs is that like, there is a connection that you can make with people that's like on another level. And yeah.
Did that happen with you?
Yeah. I can't name names, but I have a series of people that I've had, you know, some really good experiences with where maybe I wasn't super close with them beforehand. And then afterwards, they're like lifelong best friends, like keep in contact for forever.
What you got to walk me through this. Walk me through the day. Like, is this like, you know, today's the day that we're going to do this? Like,
yeah. There's a plan. I'll say that. I'm not a person that's like going to a concert and on a whim doing one of these things. Like I have a couple of buddies where like that's their go-to is like they're hitting the casino and they're out in the public. I'm in a controlled space. Like I'm in a controlled space where I have dialed in all the variables. Like no one's going to pop in on me. You know, I have all the food and water I need for the night. I already have the lights coordinated, the music set up, maybe like something trippy. Like I had a really interesting Star Wars coloring book that, you know, sucked me into a few hours of a crazy trip.
That's crazy. I ask because I'm genuinely interested myself because I'm someone who has never done psychedelics ever. And no, it's just something that, let's go. Doss walking in.
What up?
We're talking about psychedelics, dude. That's what I just said.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Have you ever created on psychedelics?
No. So, but one thing I'll say is like back to that point of like having the connection is like during this time when I was starting to make the pop punk music, it was around the time where I hit like 5 years at the company I was working at. And I remember my fiance saying like, get yourself something nice. And I was like, I'm going to get a guitar and I'm going to start doing this guitar music. And then shortly after that, we had tripped and I literally just grabbed this guitar. I don't plug it into anything. And I felt like Jimi Hendrix playing this guitar. And every time I grab that guitar, there is like a feeling of like, oh, I love this guitar. It felt like it reinvigorated my music. And I don't know if I can attribute it specifically to that guitar itself, the other things around it, or the fact that I was just in my room with some lights going crazy, just jamming on this guitar acoustically. I don't know if people get that, but playing acoustically on electric guitar doesn't make a lot of noise. It's not the appeal.
Yeah.
It is an hour straight of me jamming.
Yeah, no, I'm typically someone who, you know what I mean? I have no time. I've clocked in no time on psychedelics, dude. You know, I had an edible once that sent me.
That can be, I could see that.
Dude, so I was on tour with Watsky, and we had this like ferry ride. It was like an 18-hour ferry ride. No internet, no nothing. Like just us, this boat, and the sea in between the UK and Ireland, dude. So I had this, this dude's with me, Guy, who's like the drummer. Mm-hmm. And see, this is where you and I are different, because every time I've done something like this, it's been on a whim. You know what I mean? I've never just been like, oh, that's what I'm going to do today. So I was like, is it strong? He's like, yeah. He's like, you'll feel it. So I try, dude. So the first hour, brutal. I'm like, it hits me, and I'm like, I actually was cruising at a nice altitude, right? I was flying through, feeling great. And then all of a sudden, dude, there was just like a moment where I feel like I rocketed into the universe, and I just wasn't the same for the rest of the night, dude. I remember laughing at a couple of things that like I couldn't explain to other people because I was so out of it. One of those was like Watsky. There was a dude who had a very similar haircut to Watsky, and I thought that was the fucking funniest thing in that moment.
Oh yeah, like seeing a doppelganger of a buddy.
Yeah,
like that's.
But unable to explain that is crazy, dude. But
I'd say a strong edible can have a psychedelic feeling. I can definitely attest to that. I also think people don't understand how strong edibles can be, and it's like I've had a bunch of friends tell me about giving edibles to people that I'm like, why are you doing that to them? Like, what are you doing that to at your friends at a Friendsgiving?
So I know that you've had good experiences. Have you had any bad experiences?
Yeah.
These make for great stories, dude.
Yeah. I had a pretty horrific experience that I don't want to tell this, but I do tell it to all my friends. But essentially I was doing acid at my house years ago, and it was one of those this is one of those instances where like I say to you, this is why I have to have everything planned. But basically, like, you don't want an unexpected variable in that sense. So I'm tripping. I go up. We have like a porch at my place that's like outside, and being outside is the best part. So, you want to feel like you're in touch with nature, like having the wind hit you, like the sun, the lights out there. That's the best part. It really is. It truly is. Like I always think of those people that talk about like grounding. Like you appreciate that shit when you're tripping. And so I'm on the porch, and I say to myself like, wow. And it's like hit, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, I'm gonna have a great day. I still remember what the trees look like. It's like all kind of like crazy. And then just like, I hear my mother's voice like piercing in my ear. Rain! And I'm like, this isn't real. I'm like, this isn't happening, right? So I kind of like look around. I'm like, no. And I see my parents driving down the street towards our house in a convertible, and my mom just waving. And I'm like, yo, this is one of the single worst things that could be happening right now. And basically my parents pull up. I can't form words. I can't put syllables together. And so my fiance is standing there, and she's like, hey, how are you doing? And she looks at me, and she's like, this can't be real. This can't be real. And now my parent, mind you, we're in like a balcony. So my parents are farther away. And my mom just is like, how are you doing? I got nothing. In that instance, I got nothing. I got no words. I got no syllables. I can't say anything. And literally my fiance is like, say something, say something. She starts whispering to me, say something, say something, say something. And I blurt out, so I saw Kenny yesterday, just a friend of mine that like, what does it have to do with like, how are you doing? And I make this eye contact with my dad, and he's fully aware something is going on. And my mom is oblivious to it. She really is. Like, I think about it now, like she probably has no idea this happened. And my dad really gave me this serious look and just said like, have a great day. And he just drove off. And when I tell you that I felt real pain in my body, it was like real physical pain of like, I got so thrown off with that. And like they, honestly, like one of the worst feelings ever. And I still remember that one of my neighbors had fireworks too. So later in that trip, the fireworks are going off, and I'm saying to my fiance, this should be sick. Like this should be everything we ever wanted. And I'm going like, that was brutal. It could have been worse. They could have came in, they could have talked to me, they could have really seen how out of it I was. But the fact that I couldn't put words together for a good like minute or two. And then I just blurred out like, oh, I saw so-and-so recently. And my mom's like, great. And my dad's like, have a great day. We're out of here.
Dude. What's the lesson to take away from this, Ray?
Yo, the lesson to take away from this is don't do drugs. But really what it is like, I have things dialed in. I do my drugs when my parents are out of state. That's my rule.
It's honestly a good strategy because as you were telling this story, I was thinking about my edible experience. And dude, that experience, I almost got sent a little too far, dude. I didn't really clarify that, but there was a moment where like there was this lo-fi beat playing that just almost took me out. And you wouldn't think a lo-fi beat would take you out, but like the way it was just hitting like a resonance in my brain that
I could see it.
Had my mom had been there in that moment, I would have been sent, dude. I probably would be a different person today.
Oh, definitely.
I can't imagine like seeing my parents like in a inebriated state, dude, which I am very rarely in, but like,
yeah, like, you know, I'm not a big drinker or anything like that. And I've been pretty drunk around my parents and my mom does not like it. And so, you know, tripping was not in the cards, you know, for me to see them. And yeah, you know, but hey, I had to see this coming. My parents pop in like crazy at my place. So now, hey, like I said, I just wait till they're out of state.
Yeah, let's pull it back to music, dude. I want to know something crazy that's happened to you in music, dude. Like a story that like, I can't believe that this happened, whether good or bad.
Good or bad? Crazy stories. I don't know about like...
Maybe like a tour story, like something that's happened on the road, maybe a show. There's always something wrong going on at a show, I feel like.
So like, honestly, like this is like unfortunate. And this is like giving me like almost like PTSD towards it. I know it's I shouldn't say it that aggressively, but
it means basically it's added stress to you.
Yeah. My tour with Futuristic was really the only time I've been on tour. And when I went there, like my sound did not work for the first 3 shows. And I was only booked for 11. I ended up playing 13. But like when you really think of that math and thinking of like, I was 3 for 3 on shows where like my sound didn't work. And when I mean I didn't work, like I can't describe it, but basically I was just doing the set a cappella to an extent. Like they kept telling me they couldn't raise my volume loud enough through the speakers, so they kept having to lower it. So I had like essentially like an a cappella set 3 nights in a row, and then Codebreak fixed it for me.
Codebreak's a legend, dude. I just got to shout him out.
Shout out Cody. He just like decided to let me use one of his DIs, and it all worked out. And we went to we bought a bunch of equipment or whatever, but it was like one of those things where it's like a dream come true moment. I'm finally on tour. Dylan Reese is there, best friends there. Like I feel comfort. Like I had met Futuristic years prior. Now I'm like an equal is what I'm thinking to myself. And then I get there. There's like 25 people for my set. And I'm essentially just like talking to them like this. I'm just like, it was so, oh my God, dude. The feeling after those shows was like, what am I doing out here? Like, what am I doing across the country? Like making a fool of myself.
You were feeling discouraged?
Oh my God, I felt horrible about it. Because I really felt like it was on me. Because I was running my own operation. I was my DJ. I was doing everything. And all my shows at that point in time was me showing up with a laptop and being like, I have the instrumentals in an iTunes library. Let me get an aux. And that's so like, I don't want to say unprofessional, but that's like.
How did the shows finish though? Like the run finish?
So once we got that coordinated, the funniest thing is the first night my sound works, I'm in Santa Cruz, and 2 of my best friends had moved across the country and I hadn't seen them in a while, and they lived in California, and they surprised me at the show. And there was only 6 people for my set, but because that 808 was really coming through and the bass and the drums were hitting, dude, I had the most energy I've ever had in a show. I think I was wearing this shirt, to be honest. That show felt amazing. And I still remember like pulling the 6 people in together and taking a photo with them. And 2 of them are like my best friends. And then it's like 4 random people. Like by the time Futuristic went on, there was a crowd. But the fact that like the show where my sound works, it's like 2 of my best friends and 4 randos. I didn't care. I was out in the crowd. I was doing my verses. I was jumping around, like hearing that music actually have that, you know what it's like on stage, and that feeling goes through you. Dude, it was crazy having those 3 nights where my sound didn't work. So now every show I go to, I'm always so stressed out at sound check because I always think something's going to go wrong. And everyone's like, what's the worst that can happen? And I'm like, the sound doesn't work. Like, what are we here for?
Yeah. But so the rest of the shows that like after that, like fourth show, everything was good.
Oh my God. It was great. Cause honestly, you know what tour is like. I only did it in like, I was on 2 weeks of their tour, the first week of their tour and the last week of their tour, which was sick because I was able to tour and then go back to work and then come home and go to tour. And I had crazy energy. Like they're all beat up by the last leg of tour. Like I don't know how long it was, but let's say it's like a 6-week tour. Like first week, everyone's got energy. I got energy.
Yeah.
I came back at the end of that tour. They're all like home stretch. Like, let's finish this out. And I'm like, yo, it's vacation for me. Like I'm out here living my dreams. So like I soaked it in at that point and I really had a lot of fun. And I hit a stride, you know, where I felt like my live show was sick compared, like, you don't realize how much better you can get until it's like a day in, day out. You're like, I can see what I did wrong yesterday and make a change today and build on that. And I felt great. Obviously, the first 3 shows felt like a huge setback.
Well, I was going to say the reason why I asked like how the rest of the tour went, because your first anything always is going to suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just got to rip off the Band-Aid so that you're able to get to the point where like things are really good. You know, my first podcast, go watch it back. Shit's ass, dude. You know what I mean? Like the context is good, but like, you know, there's like a bunch of bad cuts. Like, you know, I was interrupting my guest more, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, you just got to go and learn, you know? And I've definitely had shows where my sound, dude, I remember, I think I was like in Oregon or something and the music was playing, but something was like blaring. It was like one of those, like when you rip out the chord sound, dude, it just kept happening at like middle of the set, but I just addressed it and made a joke out of it. I was saying a sentence and it kept cutting me off. So I was like, who in here? Like, I forget what I was saying. I was saying something like, yo, ready to hear some mute. And then
you got to roll with it. You got to try and roll with it.
You have to, dude. Cause the only thing, but then I was just saying it faster and faster every time. Just so like, if it cut me off, like, you know what I mean? And people thought it was funny, dude. I just was like talking really fucking fast to like, I was like, yo, this shit might interrupt me again, but let me just fucking say what I got to say, dude.
Yeah. That's like, I can't remember specifically how I handled it, but like, no, once the sound started working, I felt like, oh, I'm on tour. But those multiple days of sitting in the van, driving to another place and being like, oh my God, is it going to work? Like,
and are you solo at this point? Who you with?
So it's just, so basically Futuristic was really sick and had it set up to where like he had a van, a little Sprinter van and a driver. And then I was in it with the other openers. So to start the tour, it was me and Dylan Reese. Okay. And so we had Kirk with us and then we had the driver and then I had Bo Horiza solo visuals with me. And, I mean, Dylan is a homie. Dylan's been there for me for everything. Dylan's essentially my manager, like one of my best friends. And so having him there was great because he was like, what can we do? What can we fix? How can we look at this? We kept thinking it was something with my mixes. It was literally the way that I was connecting things. It just bothers me. Like if I just brought like my Apollo or something like that with me and used that interface as working it, I would have been fine because people would have known what to do. But yeah, like now my live show is drastically different from that because it's a bunch of live instruments. But that has more pieces in it. So for my last few shows, I was getting these flashbacks of like, oh my gosh, now I have more variables in my equation of getting sound to work at this show. But yeah, I just sound checked like a motherfucker and I kept booking studio time at places and bringing my setup and breaking it down and setting it up and making sure it worked. I was very like anxious about it this time around.
Yeah, no, it makes sense though. But you know, nothing will get you to learn something and perfect something more than something going wrong, dude. You know what I mean?
Learning the hard way, really.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, I actually think it's important to go through those things, dude. Like, I think, like, not that you like everyone needs like the character building way of things, but like, you know, when those things happen, you really appreciate like the good things. And it's like, yo, you know, you'll go for shows in the future. And not like, I know that you've had shows even recently where you're like very far from the point of the show going wrong. You know what I mean? I hope.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, crazy enough, like, I had a show in December where we had something get messed up. I'm running like a bunch of backing tracks in my current setup because I'm playing a lot of band driven music and I don't have a full band and I'm like putting together a band and there's a lot of guitar parts that I can't sing and play at the same time. So I have those playing and then I'm just playing the rhythm section over it. So to do that, you have to like run your in-ears with your metronome and everything like that. And I just messed up the metronome on one of our tracks and we played a bar show and had this really off click in our ears, and we're looking around at each other, and legitimately at one point in the song, all three of us stopped playing and then picked back up. And none of my friends and family like recognized it, but you watch the videos back and it's one of the most painful things ever. But that was like, it was our first time playing together as a band. It was the first time running those songs. Like, it was a small bar show that was an experiment, to be honest.
Yeah, but the thing too is like when things go wrong, like unless it's very drastic and obvious, most people don't.
Yeah, you got to run with it.
Yeah, most people don't recognize it because people just don't assume that things are going to go wrong, you know?
Yes. I've found that like there are times where you can brush it off and you can play through something. Like that was something we just played through because we just played through the song. We played the rest of the song great. The next song was fine. The rest of the set was good. It was just a weird hiccup. But there have been other times where like I've had the sound guys like the sound cut out and whatnot. And sometimes like just making a joke to the crowd and just like being in it and being like, hey, it is what it is. Like everybody gets it.
Oh yeah, no, 1,000% too. Let's flip it, dude. Let's talk about some of the great moments you have, because I refuse that you've gone through all these hiccup shows and stressed to not have a great show where you're like,
dude, this show. So it's crazy. The Futuristic run was in 2018 or 2019, and then COVID hit, and I didn't play a show since. So I played 3 shows in the last like 6 months, and there was a big gap. There was like basically a 4-year gap there. And I didn't do any of the same songs. So it's all new music, and it's me playing guitar for like 90% of the set. So that was a huge variable, because I make this joke to a lot of my friends that like, not only did I have to sing and play guitar, but you got to look cool. You know what I mean? You got to look cool. You can't be like so locked in on playing your instrument that you're just like a robot there. So that was something where like I had to practice my songs so much that I had to feel like I could just play them and have fun with it. And speaking of just like reaching out to people, years ago, I reached out to a drummer on Instagram about playing on a song. He was in the middle of the tour and he couldn't, but he said, hit me up whenever you need me. And his name is Amani Drums, and he was in Connecticut. And I was like, what are you doing in Connecticut? And he's like, I got family in Connecticut. And I'm like, would you play drums for me at a show? And he was like, 100%. So I knew I had like a bulletproof option of like a touring seasoned drummer that plays with a new band every week, has his own band. And I flew him out the day before the show. He learned my entire hour-long set. We played it the next day, and it was some of the craziest musicianship I've ever seen. So like I'm on stage basically like experiencing this drummer for the first time. And it was one of the most surreal things ever. And it was great because it was like I came back after a 4-year whatever layoff and not playing music to have one of the most electric shows in Hartford I've ever done. And it was my first ever headliner. So like I felt like I put a lot of pressure on myself, but like having a legitimate professional musician with me going through my set of being like, oh yeah, this is what it's like when I play with so-and-so on so-and-so tour at whatever arena.
And the drummer is so important too, because a lot of people might not know this, but the drummer is basically the foundation for the whole set. And
exactly, yeah. And so I can't discredit my bassist. It's a homie of mine that I work with, and he actually helped me source a lot of the instrumentation I needed to set up like our in-ear rack and all these things. But it was one of those things where I had never played with a band. So going all the way back to being 8 years old and playing guitar, I had jammed with my friends in a basement. You know, I had played like someone's playing drums, someone's just noodling on the bass, I'm playing guitar, but no one's like sitting there playing a series of songs, let alone songs I wrote, right? So my buddy Josh helped me put together the whole set, and then we flew Amani out, and I just remember him saying to me, like, I can play any punk drums at any given moment. So the fact that like we basically learned like he learned like 14 songs. I booked the studio for a full day. We had like 14 songs, and the next day we just crushed it. Like then we did a Blink cover, and then we went and saw Blink-182 in Hartford 2 or 3 days later and watched them play the songs that we covered. And I was like, this is sick. I felt like I was in Blink-182. I really did. Like I know we were only playing to 120 people, and Blink-182 played to 30,000, but like it felt like a full circle moment in my life.
No,
and I'm like 30
sick,
years old. I'm like 32 years old.
Ray, tell me a unique fact about you that we might not know, dude.
I mean, a lot of people don't know that I'm like a mechanical engineer. I work on helicopters.
Oh, hell yeah,
So that's
dude.
like that's my day. I don't like talking about it a ton, but it kind of makes sense when people realize like kind of how I approach problems and topics. And sometimes I'm a little bit too analytical when I'm talking to people about things, but yeah, that's like a fun fact that I feel like a lot of people forget, is that like, you know, I'm an engineer for like 40 hours a week.
That's insane, dude. Another thing I know about you too is you're a kendama player.
Oh my God, dude, I almost brought one. I normally always have one on me. But yeah, the kendama was huge. My best friend, who's going to be the best man at my wedding, him and I always have weird hobbies. So the first one was bouldering and rock climbing. And we were doing that a ton. And we literally kept getting hurt. Like I went through like 2 or 3 finger pulley issues in a few months. And I was like, maybe we're not taking it. Maybe we need a little bit of a lesser like hobby. And we were like, no, we're going to commit to this. And then my fiance got me a kendama 1 year for like my birthday or something. I brought it to the climbing gym. And for a few weeks in a row, we didn't even climb. We would just be on the mats watching other people climb, playing kendama. And we were like, yeah, I think this is my new thing.
What are the parallels between kendama and music, dude?
The grind.
Yeah.
The grind.
Abstract asked me to ask that to you.
Oh, that's actually a great question. That's a great question there, Luke.
It's a silly question.
The Neil deGrasse rap. Thank you for that. But yeah, like the parallel that I think is the grind, right? So even to like talking about your crazy weekend that you had and hitting a flow state, kendama is like a version of being locked in that like you don't find in a lot of places. Because the thing I like to remind people is like the kendama is like attached by a string. So like you miss a trick that's still in your hand, you just do it again. You don't have to like reset as much. It's kind of like, and it is similar to skateboarding in the sense that it's a series of tricks and there's like difficulties and that's how you play it. Like kind of like horse. Like a lot of people play skate, you play Ken. It's like playing horse in basketball. But when you're doing it, you can grind a trick and find yourself like so honed in on doing something that like time just whips by and it's like 20, 30 minutes. And you're like, oh my God, I've been trying to balance this ball on this thing. And I found that music is the same way. Sometimes I sit down, I open up a session on a song and I just let my ADD take over and I just start clicking and dragging and going places and you're locked in on what you're working on.
You know, talking about the music grind, dude, what's a hard time in music that you had like, or a struggle you had to overcome in music?
Dude, I mean, honestly, like transitioning from this like hip hop music to the rock music, like I really wanted to produce it myself. I wanted to be able to play the songs. So like actually saying to myself, like, I'm going to take a step back from releasing music and going on the schedule that I had. Cause I had a workflow. I had like an efficiency in the way that I was recording songs where I have beats lined up. I'd have verses I'd be writing. I would just be churning these things out. You know, it was like clockwork, checking in every day, recording. And then when it came to like learning something new, it was like, oh my God, I'm moving so slow. Like these songs suck. Like everything sounds terrible. But it was like that kind of like willingness to take a step back and just kind of like eat shit for a bit, to be honest. Like I produced a bunch of terrible records in 2020 that never saw the light of day. And it was one of the most rewarding things that I had done. I also bit the bullet and just bought some songwriting courses like online for like $100 or whatever, like from like Ryan Tedder, like Louis Bell and
some of the
Charlie Puth.
Yeah, some of the greats in the industry, dude.
And that was such a little like hack. But I had started trying to do all that stuff before I did that. And then I realized like I just kind of needed to reach out for some help and like reach out for some advice.
What's something that you learned? My bad, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
what's
good.
Something that you learned from one of those courses? Because I'm sure there was a lot of gems.
Oh my God, there was so much. It kind of depends on which person you're talking to. Like Louis Bell's was really about the collaborative process and like working with an artist.
What do you say about that?
Because when you look at Louis, like he's not a singer, he's not an artist, he is a producer. So at the end of the day, his was like probably a lot of stuff that you probably already relate to, which was like have a conversation with the people when they get there, like get to know them. And then also like be confident in your work so that they don't have to really be worried about you. So like that's what that course was about. Like he was teaching you how to comp on the fly, like while they're actively recording. That's something I don't do. But that was something that like gave me a greater appreciation for like people that are really in the shit doing this at a high level. But from a songwriting perspective, Charlie Puth had the best tip, which was if you're ever in a rut, write an uncomfortable song. And so his course, I guess I'm just giving away his course. The first half was writing a song that was like right in your wheelhouse. Like what's the best thing that you do in music? Start there. And then the second song was what's something you never do? Or what's something you're afraid to do? Or what's something that you've always wanted to try, but you've never tried it. And so for me, it was like, I never write anything in keys. Everything always starts on guitar. So I started a song on keys and then like I wrote the bass first. I did everything backwards, and it was one of the most fun songs. So now a lot of times when I'm in a rut or I don't know what to do, I just pull something out of left field. Like maybe I'll just write an acoustic song out of nowhere. I never play acoustic guitar, and then
I think that's a great tip though, dude. You know, like even as I'm like listening to that now, like to me, it makes a lot of sense, you know? And sometimes all it takes is like hearing somebody say that. Cause I'm sure there's somebody tuning into the podcast who might be in a rut or trying to figure it out themselves. But I think that's great advice too. And like, you know, we'll hit the hat trick, dude. Do you remember anything Ryan Tedder said?
Yeah. So Ryan was really melody driven. But before I move off of the Charlie Puth thing, it was really just like trying new things. And so it makes you realize that like sometimes you can be writing songs the exact same way over and over again. And that's why you're in a rut, because it's stale to you. So like you're not having fun doing that process. That's probably why. Now that's maybe like a deeper psychological thing that I'm kind of just like making an assumption out of. But with Charlie, it was like pull the plugin that you love, that you use all the time, and now put it on something you would never use it on. And like, Dylan Reese said it on your pod. He mixes a lot of stuff himself, and he does a lot of things like not by the book, and his shit sounds great. So it's like sometimes it's like worth taking something and doing something you would never expect to do with it, and then all of a sudden you make a new sound. Maybe it's not even what you were going for, but it like can kickstart an idea. So not being afraid to try new things was really kind of like Charlie's thing. Ryan was super melody driven to where like he was all about write something super catchy. That's your chorus, and you think it's your chorus, cool, come back tomorrow, write something catchier, and keep writing things catchier so that like maybe the chorus you thought was your chorus really is your pre-chorus. And then maybe at the end of the final arrangement, it's really just a bridge. And then maybe at the end, you throw it away because you got something better. He was really churning out like high level, like pop. And I like that because pop punk is what I always loved. And it just is a punk sound shaped in pop. You're trying to make it as catchy as possible. But yeah, Ryan, like he was really, really, really melody driven, but he had a lot of cool tips of like, this is like nerdy songwriter shit, but it's like, if you can't figure out how to write a section, like maybe it's because each section you're coming in on the one every time. So like consciously tell yourself like, I'm going to hold a beat coming on the 2 or the and or the 4, and you naturally come up with new things. And it's funny how like, me being analytical, going back to my thing, like that's being a little rigid. But if you are running into a wall where you're recording something, it's not working, it's good to have a tip in your mind of like, oh, maybe I'll come in on the 4 leading into this, and it'll spark a new melody.
Yeah, new perspective is always good too. And I like the advice of like coming back to it too. That's like something that's always helped me.
Yeah, like it's like, I don't know, I forget the comic. I think it was Louis C.K. where he had this thing where anytime he wrote an hour in comedy and he had a big closing bit that was really good, that was his closer, when he started writing his new hour, he would start his comedy sets with that closer, knowing that it's a banger and that now people are going to be expecting something better. So now he's almost putting himself in a hole to be like, I got to write something better. And so it's like kind of putting that on yourself of knowing like maybe the first instinct is good. And I always like keeping my first takes. Like you've probably had a bunch of songs that come together like immediately.
Oh yeah. And then the opposite too.
Yes. And so that's the thing is that like there isn't one way to do it. So a lot of people get either locked in of like, yeah, I only work if it comes to me immediately, or, oh, I never go with the first idea. I don't like that. I like to be open to really whatever's going to work. So like, you know, I had a song I was recording vocals yesterday, and basically I just kept recording takes over and over and over again and not listening to the last one. And every time I kept saying like, damn, that's good. And then I would write like, this one's good would be the name of the track. And then the next one was, I was like, this one's not as good as that one, but it's good. And then the next one was like, this might be the best. And all I was thinking is in that moment, I hadn't recorded vocals in a few weeks, so I was feeling good. But it's like, if I had then stopped and said like, this is the one, I'm good, move on to another section, like maybe I would have cut off all those other ideas. I'm going to go back tomorrow and sift through those, you know, but.
Ray, what's your advice that because we talked about a lot of advice that we've got from some of the greatest songwriters of our generation. What's some advice that Ray would put out for an artist that's on the come up right now?
If you're on the come up, I would say be consistent. Like kind of like what I was saying earlier on, like at one point in time, I had a schedule where it was like, I'm putting out a song every 3 weeks. Like it was a song every 3 weeks. It was like 17 songs a year. And I remember Dylan Reese kind of saying to me like, what, you can't write a song in a month? Like you're just top lining it. Like I wasn't producing at the time. I was just ripping a beat off YouTube, writing to it for a while, and then reaching out to that producer and maybe just getting a 2-track from them. You know what I mean? The mixing and mastering of that is like 2 seconds. So that was one of those ones where at that time, for someone coming up, I made a template for my vocal chain, and I kind of had a rule where it was like every day when I got home from work, I was going to record for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, or maybe even just set a timer on my phone and just be like, I can't play PlayStation until I've committed to writing something or recording something. And you would be surprised with how many times that timer goes off and you just slide the phone away and you're like in some type of flow state to where if you had thought, oh, I need an idea before I sit down, maybe you never sit down. Maybe you never get to that point. So the consistency thing for me, nowadays it's like finding the time, dude. Because there's so many more aspects to being an artist than the music that it's like.
Well, let's talk about that, dude. What are some of the things that you feel like you do great on and some things that maybe you're lacking on too on the other side of it? Because making good music is legitimately like 30% of the battle.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a really good ratio to say that, because I know some insane musicians that just don't, that I feel like aren't getting as much love as they should. And that's not me knocking any big musicians that I think aren't as talented as some of my friends, but like some of these people, you're like, I can't believe you're just making this music in your bedroom, you know? But yeah, like one of the things I'm worse at is social media. Like I can't even deny it. Like my social media is horrible. I was making a joke to Mike that like he has been posting like multiple times a day for the last few days, and I haven't even put up a thing on my story since the show in January. So it's March 5th and I haven't made a social media post since like January 11th.
It's a grind, dude. It's like a whole different thing. But like, is there something in particular that like has stopped you from doing it? Because I'm sure the reason I asked though, because I'm sure you are not alone on this feeling. I see it happen all the time.
To me, sometimes social media feels really forced. And so like, I don't want it to feel so forced. And like, that's kind of like, you know, I said with the music, like show up and have consistency. Like I should follow my own advice for social media, like batch doing content and things like that. I've done that a ton, but then it's funny. I'll batch make all that content and I'll post the first few and then I'll be like, I hate all of this. And then I do it all the time where I'll make like 30 reels and only like 2 or 3 of them ever get posted. And then like 6 to 8 months later, I'm like, I don't even look like that anymore. You can't post it. But like to me, it's, I don't know, Jimmy and Scooped Up, shout out Jimmy, didn't plan on giving you a shout out, but I'm shouting him out. His social media is funny as hell. And it's very
they do a good job,
Jimmy-centric. And that's something that I envy, because like I wish that I like did something like that instead of just like setting the mic up and mouthing the lyrics to my song and putting the text on it. And it's like, that was such like a TikTok phase to where like, I'm glad I'm not just doing that anymore, but now I'm in a pattern where like sometimes I just do funny skits and I post them, but it's not a consistent thing.
I think you just got to find out what works for you, dude. Jimmy's a great example too, because
so funny.
Dude, one of my favorite videos that he ever did, he's like, today I'm smoking a cigarette for every follower we have. We have 20,000 followers, so I'm smoking 20,000 cigarettes, dude.
Yep.
And it's like a time lapse of him just fucking
like going like this over and over again.
I really wish I should talk to him about that too, because like, you know, how many did he actually smoke is the real question.
Dude, he probably didn't smoke any. He probably time-lapsed
see
that.
Them go down.
Yeah.
I actually don't. I believe that he smoked. He might have like, fuck, I might hit him on this.
I have a feeling that he may have smoked one and just edited it very well. Cause he's crafty behind the camera. That's the thing that's great with him, is his camera work is good. The quality is good. And then he's funny as hell. And it goes in line with the whole like skate punk vibe. You know?
It is funny, dude. But you know, let's talk about like a moment of success you had, dude. Like, what's one of the biggest moments of success you've had in your career?
I mean, like a literal moment of success is like honestly, the Mod Sun feature really was a big moment of success, because when I booked the Futuristic tour, that was huge, right? That's a big tour. But on that first day of tour, I spent not the first day of tour, but the days leading up to tour, I spent at Abstract's house, and we watched a Mod Sun interview. And at the end of it, I was like, yeah. And he had the Mod feature. So that was the other thing. I had known that Mod was approachable because he had the Mod feature for years.
He had that beautiful song.
Yeah. And I remember saying to him, like, I want to do a song with Mod. And I was talking to them about all the pop punk music I was going to do. I had a batch of pop punk beats from some producer, and I was playing it for all them. And I was saying, like, I want to make this type of music. I want to do that. But it's like, I'm just now getting a tour as a rapper, and I'm just going to throw it all away and go do pop punk music. So it was really cool that like within a few months of saying that to those guys, I had already had a batch of pop punk music that felt real, felt like I'm going to do this. And then I got a Mod Sun feature on one of my last like pure hip hop records that I was like, holy shit, like I'm speaking things into existence. So that's where it's like, ever since, like every song I put out feels like a big accomplishment, to be honest, because I feel like every song is like a step up. And like I've worked with some of my idols, you know what I mean? Like so many great musicians. It's insane really when I think about it. Cause like I'm just some guy with a job in Connecticut, and then at night I play guitar and sing.
But it's tight, dude. And it's like, but it just shows you that you can really make your dreams happen, dude, and like pull them off. I'm like laughing a little bit to myself over here because I'm thinking of that Mod Sun record that Abstract has. And we were shooting a video in the middle of nowhere. I forgot the Salvation Mountain. You can Google it, California. And if I remember correctly, I must have made Luke play that record 50 times in a row, dude. Like it would stop and I'd be like, again, dude. Like again, dude. He must have been so sick of that song, but I really enjoyed that song. And I think a lot of it too, like at that moment I was like listening to it, trying to plot on like a music video, you know what I mean? But I just like was thinking back and I was like, yo, we had this crazy long drive and I literally made him play that song like 100 times, dude. And like, he probably was like, yo, can we like change it up, dude? And I'm like, nah, dude, again, dude.
Do you know what it's like making music? You hear your songs way too many times, like way too many times.
No, I do love that song, dude. Well, I'm gonna start pulling this to the end zone, dude. One thing I want to know is what's some of the best advice that you've been given?
I've been given a lot of advice. My dad has this phrase. He says, never give up, never surrender. I always think of that where it's like, you can do whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Like
you can
that,
keep
dude.
pushing through. Like you can carry yourself to victory. You know what I mean? Like you can get to anything that you want. I know that there are certain barriers of entry to do a lot of things, but there's always a way around that with some like good work ethic or good networking or just knowing the right people. And like a lot of people say that where it's like knowing the right people. You can get to know the right people.
Oh,
by,
yeah.
Like mingling at shows, going to the right places, you know.
I think a lot of it is just showing up, dude.
Showing up's huge.
It's like pretty much all of it, dude. It's, you know, every time that I have to make a song, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't go in like knowing what I'm going to make, but I just show up and then just let it happen. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know with the show, you know what I mean? Like if I'm going, like maybe I'm not even a part of the show, but like, I don't know who I'm going to meet there, but you just show up, dude. It's like, you know, so it's really important to get out there and network and build your community because, you know, if you go out to these events and like the more people you meet and the more positive and, you know, you're good at your work and people see that, like word of mouth will carry you further than anything, dude. Cause it's like, you know, I don't know exactly how we met, Ray.
So I met you in Rhode Island. One of the first times I met Dylan Reese too, at Simon's 677, and the lineup was Dylan Reese, me, Whit Lowry, whole show. And I'm telling you right now, like I was very serious about selling tickets. I still am. Like anytime I do a show, I'm always like very serious about like the people I'm going to bring. And Dylan is the same way. And so him and I were doing the concert scene in that area, and we were bringing people out to this random bar in Rhode Island.
Who's the promoter on this?
Rich.
Rich, what's his name?
Rich Keynote or something like that? Keynote Rich or something like that?
Bro, I don't want to interrupt you, but I am interrupting you. Dude, I dropped his pizza in the trash. He ordered a brand new pizza and he put it on a counter kind of similar to this, and I knocked it down and the pizza landed on the floor. And I had to buy that man another pizza. Sorry about that, dude. Continue.
Dude,
the pizza was not more important.
I barely met him, but he booked me for a lot. Dude, he booked me for my first shows. Like without Rich, I wasn't playing shows. I wouldn't have met Dylan. And that's like a huge time in my life. But yeah, when I met you, I remember you were with, was it Liam from College of Music?
Damn, Liam,
so
dude.
I went right up to, so basically like I had interacted with all of you on the internet for years.
Yeah.
You're Mike Squires, man. You were known, dude. You were doing Webby videos at that time. You were doing Wit videos. Like it was huge. And I remember when I got to that show, I knew you were going to be there. A goal of my night was to talk to Mike. Like that's what I'm going to do. And same with Liam. And Liam gave me very honest feedback on my music, which was sick. Because I was like, I've submitted to College of Music. Why don't you play me?
Dude, I haven't talked to Liam in so long, dude.
Bro, he gave me some of the best advice. I never followed it.
What'd Liam say, dude?
He said, just get somebody else to mix and master your music. Because I was doing it. And he was like, just pay to get it done. And I was so naive that I was like, I already pay for my beats. Like, what do you mean pay for this? I was making my own art. I was mixing and mastering. I was recording it for myself. And now that I pay for mixing and mastering, like, dude, after this, I'll play you a demo.
I'd love to hear
that
it,
I
dude.
sent to an engineer, my mix, and then you'll hear his mix. And you'll go like, bro, what, like, you know what it's like.
Oh, yeah,
sometimes
dude.
the mixing engineer, they're doing all the legwork.
Bro, they have made some of, like, you know, I got to give flowers.
ear candy.
Bro, they have made some of my records that were at once questionable until a beautiful masterpiece, dude.
Dude, it's a real industry. Like when you think about music and you think about how things are crafted, like I don't care who you're a fan of, especially at the highest level, Ed Sheeran, Lady Gaga, all those people, like, yo, they just sing and write something. And then some other guy shapes the entire tonality and sound that hits your ears. And like, obviously the songs are great. I'm not downplaying the songs, but like there's a whole like industry of these people that make the sounds that you hear. And I was naive enough to think like, yeah, I'm gonna do it all by myself. And like you can, and you really can get good at it. You can follow the Russ method. But there's a point in time where it's like, it's diminishing returns, where it's like, if I had sent that song out to get mixed and mastered by somebody else, I would have started another one and I would have saved time working on this song. And I wouldn't have had to like sit there and watch YouTube videos on how to add more high end to my main vocal.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
No, 1,000%, dude. Well, that's actually pretty good advice from Lee. And honestly, I always appreciate people that
It took me years to follow that.
Bro, but I always just appreciate people that give like honest advice that's like not dickhead advice. You know what I mean?
Dude, the Mod Sun feature was the first time I had to get somebody to mix my music. I reached out to Cryo Music, Craig, and I was like, hey, dude, Mod's verse sounds so much better than mine. And he was like, yeah, it does. And then he was like, but only because of the mix. And then, you know, same thing with getting the my Lil Lotus feature and Kellen Quinn feature. I had both of those, and I was really committed to mixing them myself. And then I was like, yo, you got two of your favorite vocalists on these songs. Don't ruin it with the mix. Like, think of that. Like, a mix can ruin a song. So I started working with some mixing engineers, and it was huge for me. But back to meeting you, dude, I just remember going up to you and being like, bro, I'm a huge fan of your work. Like, this is crazy, blah, blah. And you were like in the shooting mode. Like, you're filming wit, you're doing all these things.
I probably look like a psychopath, dude.
Yeah, they pulled me away from you because they thought I was like a fan trying to get backstage. And I was like, I'm just an artist. And then we won't get into it, but basically, like, I then go bond with Dylan over that, where I was like, what the fuck's up with that? They won't even let me talk to Mike. So then I bond with Dylan over that, and then Dylan and I become friends after that.
Here's what I'll say, dude. And this is...
I didn't want to say it.
No, you're good, dude. Here's what I'll say. I'll say this, is that, you know, the people around you are important, and you want to keep people around you that are loving and compassionate and, you know, open-hearted.
Yeah.
With that, I'll say, you know, it was harder for me to talk to other people around that time in my career. But, you know, time has gone on. Things have changed. I think I'm better for it now. The most vague response. But honestly, that would be a sick podcast episode. Like, maybe...
That would be a really good podcast episode at some point in time. I really do think so.
That would actually be nuts, dude. I haven't thought about that ever. But that could be a good podcast episode. And I hate being vague, but it just kind of shows...
No, seriously.
The level of, like, that vibe where it's like... I can't... There's a couple situations in my life where I have to be hella vague on, dude, which sucks. Like, I don't like being vague, but...
But then you were... Abstract was in town during COVID, and you guys were, like, filming a video, and I came by and hung out at your place. And interestingly enough, actually, you're going to love this. The song that I have Kellen Quinn on is a song that we were writing in that I played for you guys in that room.
That's fucking sick, dude.
And I was like, yeah, man, I'm getting into producing. Like, this is really one of the first things I produced. And crazy enough, like, it was. I didn't end up getting it on, like, the project I was working on because I was searching for a feature for forever.
Yeah.
But I played you, like, literally one of the most stripped down musical things. And I was like, Mike, I'm starting to produce. And you were like, yeah, it sounds pretty good, man. And, like, it sounded like a demo. You know?
Yeah, but no, fucking, that's sick, dude. And that ended up being the Kellen Quinn record?
Yeah, because, like, not to, like, keep ranting, but I wanted Kellen on a specific song, and when he said he was on tour and couldn't do it, I held on to the song for a while, and then I have a drummer called Tosh the Drummer that was playing on that record, and Tosh is insane, absolutely insane. This is the same time I reached out to Amani and all that stuff, and I get Tosh on it. I'm like, Tosh, can you think of an artist that sound good on this? And he was like, yeah, you should check out Crooked Teeth. And they're a sick band. And their singer, Tyson, like, loved the record, said, yeah, I'll hop on it. And then the next day or two, that's when I get the email from Kellen that's like, yo, dude, you still want me on that record? And I was like, good thing I had other demos.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yes, I actually have a song, but it was like not the one that I previously sent you. Like, I literally just locked in vocals on it like 2 days ago. Like, I would have felt terrible going back to that other guy and being like, hey, man, I think he would have understood getting a Kellen Quinn feature, but still, like, I didn't know him.
Not
so,
respect you not going back on
so
that.
then just being
probably,
like, no.
You're probably better than me, dude. If it was a record I wanted and that was my vision from the jump, I would have probably went back and I would have produced a song around the other vocals though.
So interestingly enough, I was in an interesting pattern at that time where I had enough. I was writing songs, leaving verses and choruses open, like writing them and then saying to myself, I might be able to use this for something else, because you never really know when those opportunities are going to fall on your plate. So the fact that I did talk to Kellen and had an interaction with him and he was busy made me think well, there's a time where he's going to be free. So I knew I needed to have something. And when I decided to pull the trigger on getting other vocals for the song, it's good that I had another record. I had another song in the tuck, waiting. And that's even crazier because then I got that whole song reproduced around Kellen's vocals, which was another crazy experience.
Yeah. What was that like? We'll talk about that and then I'll start pulling this to the end zone, dude.
So long story short, I put out a pop punk song that was produced by Billy Martin from Good Charlotte.
Insane.
And he just has a beat store. So spoiler alert, he just has a beat store. And during COVID, he had a lot of sick beats. And I emailed him back and forth and had a good interaction with him, sent him demos and stuff. And I used his name to promote it.
Did you have beats with the hooks on them?
Just beats.
Be sick if he had beats with hooks on them.
That'd be sick. But so I'm going back and forth with him. And I was like, can I use your name, promoting this song? He's like, of course, man. Say it's produced by Billy Martin, say all this stuff. So I got some advertising on that. And Casey Cavalieri from the Wonder Years reached out to me and was like, I think he just commented on a post that somebody made about oh, check out this song produced by Good Charlotte's Billy Martin. And then Casey was like, yo, who's this Ray guy? I gotta connect with him. And I just DM'd him hey man, huge fan of the Wonder Years. How you been? And we go back and forth, hop on a handful of FaceTimes. And he's like, what are you working on? And I had a Dropbox folder with all my shit organized. And I just threw it in the chat. And he was like, what? And I'm like, that's my album. It's everything I got right now. It's 12 demos. It's a bunch of loop. I got a folder of just loops. I got a folder of just demos, no vocals, demos with vocals, final mixes. And he was like, holy shit. And I was like, this is a lot. Do you want a synopsis? And the second I said Kellen Quinn's name, he was like, what about that one? What about that one? And played it and was like, how do you feel about this? And I was very attached to that production because this is during the time where I'm really producing stuff. And this was my baby. Because I had played it for you.
Yeah.
And this is now a year and a half later. I'm I've been massaging the
song's
song
taking
for
a
forever.
journey.
And Casey's he just grabs his guitar and he's on FaceTime with me and he goes, what are the chords? And I say it and he goes, what if I played it like this? And he just played the exact chord progression that I wrote, just professionally and spicy. And he had a little bit of flair in it. And I was like, that's the same thing I played, but way better. And that's when I realized there is a level, back to having Amani come play with me at that show, a professional drummer. There is a level of session musician that is unmatched. You can write a sick song and then spend hours trying to record it well. But a session musician that knows what they're doing, that's a seasoned veteran, might churn it out. So Casey reproduced that song. He got Skylar Accord from 21 Pilots to play bass on it.
Insane, dude.
Well, not from 21 Pilots. He's from Issues and he toured with 21 Pilots. But Skylar played bass on it. That was sick. And then all of a sudden I'm I've been listening to Wonder Years for forever. I was listening to Issues for forever. I've seen him on stage with 21 Pilots forever. It's this is absolutely insane that a DM to an email to Billy Martin asking if I could use his name to promote a song makes somebody think that I got a cosign, which I guess theoretically I do. I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's the way I look at it, dude.
Right? If
they're putting it out there, it's a cosign. You just got to pay for it, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, you always pay for your production at some point, So it's it's
no
not
shame in the
far-fetched
game in
to
my
do that.
eyes, dude.
And so it's even recently, back to you never know who will respond. I saw a Day to Remember over the summer in Bridgeport, and I wanted to see The Story So Far that was opening up for them. And then 4 Years Strong was the opener. And I didn't really know much of them, and they blew me away. And immediately after that show, I follow them. I start showing love on all their posts. I start sharing their music. I'm DMing their band, just saying hey, saw you at the show, love it. And then out of nowhere, I just recognized that one of the guys in his bio just says let's work. And it's a Google form to fill out to work with him. And I filled it out and he hit me a few days ago to say hey, let's work on some music. And I'm just people are a lot more approachable than you would expect.
The thing I want to take away from this too, like it's okay for people to be better than you in certain things, dude. And
Yeah,
like,
you have
should
to-
embrace it, dude.
Definitely.
Because I think there's a lot of people who sometimes like, you know, get caught up like wanting to do things themselves, but it's like, you know, you actually end up hurting yourself because one, you're going to take up more of your time, where it's like that you could be working on like trying to perfect one facet of your career. And then it's, and this is a fucking advice I probably could take myself, but I'll just be the way I am forever. But you know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, I can put a graphic together, but you know, my homie Jose is insane, dude. You know what I mean? So it's like, let Jose handle it because that's his everything. That he sleeps, eats, breathes doing his graphic work. You know what I mean? So it's like, what I'm trying to say is embrace people that are better than you at certain things.
Yeah, and it's really good to understand like maybe where you fall short or things that maybe you just don't find enjoyment in. You know what I mean? Like if there's a part of the process that you're not enjoying, and like for me, I was loving mixing and mastering, doing it, but I wasn't enjoying the outcome of my mixing and mastering, and it was taking up so much time in my life. And now when you think of like the opportunity cost of what I pay for, you know, a couple $100s for a mix or something like that, it's like I've had mixes that took me like probably like 40 to 50 hours to where you're like, that's a full work week of multiple days in a row where you're technically not making any progress on putting music out. You're moving the needle, but like it's an abstract needle to where like you're not finding the sound that you're looking for. So like outsourcing is,
and the professional engineer who like dedicated their life to it could do it way better and in half the time.
Yeah, and it's their thing. It's their thing that they do. So like having Casey play guitar in that song was awesome because, you know, it actually taught me a lot because I watched somebody take a song that I wrote and I played music on, and then he made it better. So I had the experiment of this is what it sounds like when I make it, and then here's his, and then I can look at them and go like, oh, he cut this part because it's redundant, or he spiced up this part because you can't just keep playing the same chords over and over again. And it's like little things where like, and then a lot of times when you're working with these people, you can pick their brain and you can learn from it. There's an iterative process of going like, hey, I like this mix better. What did you do? And then they're like, oh yeah, I completely threw away your bass and just put in a new sub. And then you're like, oh wow, that tone did suck.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, I can't fix that. You know, they're like, got to get rid of it. Or like, you know.
Oh, there's only so much you can do, dude.
Yeah.
Ray, what's your message to the world? If there was one thing you want people to take away from you, what would it be?
Do what you love.
Simple and sweet, dude. I love it, dude. Well, Ray, I want to thank you for coming on the Mike Squires and Friends podcast, dude.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, if people want to connect with you or find you, how can they?
It's Ray Vans. That is 2 words on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever you stream music. And then my social media is Ray Vans with a little underscore at the end. And
anything quick coming up? You got anything cool coming up?
Yeah, so I think this is dropping soon. I'm going to be putting out my first single in over a year on like first week of April. It's going to be called Vice City. And I'm very excited. I'll play it for you right now.
Let's go, dude. I'm ready to listen to it, dude. Well, again, thank you for coming on, dude. And yeah, that's it. We did it. We did the thing, dude.
Hell yeah.
First time at this set, dude. Well, the ever building set, dude.
Yeah, the ever evolving the Squires Studios.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got your merch back here. My book took a topple somewhere throughout. I didn't notice it at all.
I didn't notice it either.
That's crazy. We'll watch it, dude. But hell yeah, dude. Thank you.
Hell yeah. This was great.